The arrival of the human. The grand hall of the imperial spire was silent. Not the hushed silence of reverence or awe, but the cold, razor-thin pause of disbelief. The court of the Galactic Empire, composed of ambassadors, generals, and nobles from 100 species, watched with twitching appendages, unreadable expressions, and unsettled posture as the human stepped forward. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He simply stood, tall, broad-shouldered, and clad in matte black body armor that looked distinctly pre-imperial. His eyes, sharp and unblinking, scanned the room with the clinical calm of a predator. This, Emperor Zelvares declared, is Commander Jack Ryker. He will serve as my sole bodyguard henceforth. A tremor passed through the chamber. Some gasped. A Threnari noble clicked his mandibles in offense. The Gluxy matron quivered, her bioluminescent fins flickering a warning shade of red. A human? Here, beside the Emperor? Lady Salith, the representative of the Psychic Shile Collective, broke the silence. With deepest respect, Your Radiance, this species is untamed, barely starborn. Their homeworld only made contact 3 solar cycles ago. They are a violent people, added Lord Vec, his translucent skin rippling with disdain. Undisciplined, governed by emotion. The archives show them using combustion-based weaponry last century. Ryker didn't flinch. He simply looked at each speaker in turn, his stare lingering just long enough to register. I see you. I'm aware of humanity's history, Zelvares said, voice calm, eyes half-lidded behind his crown of shimmering neural filaments. Which is precisely why I chose him. The court shifted uneasily. The Emperor rose from his obsidian throne and descended the dais. His long robes brushed the silver floor as he approached Ryker. The two stood together, alien monarch and human soldier, side by side. I do not seek a shield made of bureaucracy and protocol, the Emperor said, voice now carrying weight. I need a weapon with eyes, one that sees threats where others see tradition. No one dared interrupt. Not now. 3 weeks earlier, Ryker had been elbow-deep in jungle mud, leading a Black Ops strike against a rogue AI cult on the jungle moon of Parthes 9. It was supposed to be an advisory mission. The locals panicked. The cult ambushed. His unit was wiped in 27 minutes. Ryker didn't retreat. Instead, he rigged the terrain with improvised traps, activated old Terran camouflage techniques, thermal masking, scent cloaking, noise suppression, and proceeded to dismantle the cult's command hierarchy one by one. No drones, no satellites, just a knife, a sidearm, and a week of pure instinct. When the Emperor arrived to broker peace, he found the cult leader trussed and unconscious at Ryker's feet. Ryker offered no explanation. He didn't need one. Zelvares had seen enough. Now, back in the Imperial Spire, the court buzzed with veiled discussions and psychic whispers. They couldn't comprehend what the Emperor saw in the man. Humans, to most of the galaxy, were brutes wrapped in skin. Too emotional, too primitive, too volatile. Their minds were opaque to telepathy. Their bodies inefficient by galactic standards. Yet here stood one, armed and silent, given the most sacred role in the Empire. Some called it political theater. Others whispered darker theories. Mind control, assassination insurance, secret blood debts. Ryker remained silent through it all. He never left the Emperor's side. He slept in the chamber adjacent to the throne room, ate ration bars instead of joining court feasts, and declined all diplomatic overtures. When questioned, he responded in curt sentences, always ending with, "I'm here to protect the Emperor, not to make friends." It was that refusal to play the game that terrified the court the most. That evening, High Inquisitor Draith approached the Emperor privately. "Your Radiance," he began delicately, "there is great concern about this human. His nature, his unpredictability, it unnerves even our psionics. He is unreadable." Zelvares turned to face the Inquisitor. "Good." Draith blinked. "Good." The Emperor's eyes gleamed in the low light. "Fear," he said softly, "has been absent from this court for too long. They have grown fat on peace. They forget the galaxy is not gentle." Draith hesitated. "And this human? You believe he is the antidote. No, said the emperor. He is the mirror. He returned to the throne, where Ryker stood, still and silent, watching shadows the court refused to see. The bodyguard who watches everything. Commander Jack Ryker never blinked. At least, that's what the court began to whisper after the first week. Whether standing beside the emperor during political tribunals or stationed at the rear of ceremonial processions, his gaze remained fixed, unwavering, analytical, quietly unsettling. He did not speak unless spoken to. He made no effort to engage with dignitaries. And unlike the elaborate honor guards that once flanked the emperor, Ryker wore no regalia. His armor was matte black, unadorned but for a faded Terran military insignia on his left shoulder, a coiled serpent over a broken chain. The nobles found it grotesque. The emperor called it practical. At first, they tried to ignore him. That didn't last long. During the Treaty of Raxon II, the emperor hosted a summit with rival trade houses in the Great Spiral Chamber. The room, forged from crystal and sound-reactive stone, amplified every word. Tensions ran high. Accusations of resource poaching, tariff manipulation, and covert sabotage filled the air. As tempers flared, a diplomat from the Vrinshaw Confederacy lunged forward. It was subtle, barely a twitch of the fingers, a flick of the wrist toward a hidden disruptor. Ryker moved before anyone else even noticed. There was no flourish, no warning. He stepped forward, grabbed the diplomat's wrist, twisted, and disarmed him in one clean motion. The disruptor clattered to the floor. The diplomat screamed. Ryker released him with cold efficiency and returned to his place at the emperor's side as if nothing had happened. Silence fell like a hammer. The emperor, unfazed, resumed the negotiations. He did not even glance at Ryker. Later that evening, court gossip exploded. Did you see that? He was faster than a Gridhon warhound. No guards moved, not even the psionics. He didn't even break formation. But it wasn't just speed that unnerved them. It was precision. The bodyguard had reacted instinctively, like an animal trained to sense intent before action. The nobles realized something deeply uncomfortable. Ryker was not watching for attacks. He was waiting for them. Attempts to learn more about him led nowhere. His Terran military file was sealed, his psychological profile classified. The only confirmed fact was that he had been part of something called Project Perseus, a human initiative rumored to produce operatives for extreme diplomacy, whatever that meant. So, the court turned to what they did best, manipulation. Lady Salith invited Ryker to a banquet, feigning interest in intercultural bonding. She offered him a place of honor. He declined. Lord Vec tried to bribe him with access to rare Terran delicacies. Ryker sent the crate back, unopened. Ambassador Chilkson of the Idari attempted telepathic scanning. He collapsed mid-attempt, bleeding from the eyes. The court's discomfort turned to paranoia. This man is dangerous, murmured Vec during a closed session. He is immune to standard protocol, diplomatic gestures, even psionics. How can we trust someone we cannot read? You don't, said High Inquisitor Draith. That's the point. Ryker stood vigil each night in the Hall of Echoes, a chamber filled with ancient battle relics and memory stones. When asked why, he said only, I like the quiet. What he didn't say, he'd mapped the entire palace within his first 48 hours, found the blind spots in surveillance, traced the escape tunnels, logged every ambassador's guard rotation and reaction time. He knew who carried real weapons and who merely posed. He didn't need scanners. He had instinct. One afternoon, Emperor Zelvares paused in the middle of dictating a treaty revision. They hate you, he said without looking up. I know, Ryker replied. Good. A faint smirk crossed the Emperor's face. They are watching you more than they're watching each other. You're a lightning rod. Still your sword, Ryker said, even if they don't see the blade. The Emperor chuckled. Oh, they see it. That's why they're terrified. The court no longer whispered. They schemed. They knew now that Ryker was more than a soldier. He was a symbol of something they couldn't control. Unpredictability, raw instinct, and the terrifying efficiency of human resolve. He didn't belong in the Emperor's presence, not in their eyes, and yet he remained. a lone predator in a garden of snakes. And snakes hate it when the hawk never blinks. The court's conspiracy. They met in silence. No official records. No summons. No aids. Just 7 of the Empire's most influential nobles gathered in the obsidian shadows of the Forgotten Annex, far from the Emperor's ever-watchful presence. "He is a disruption," Lady Solith whispered, her voice like silk over steel. "We cannot predict him. We cannot read him. He's not just a disruption," Vex spat, his translucent neck sacs fluttering. "He's a message. The Emperor is reminding us that we are replaceable." That, more than anything, terrified them. Ryker wasn't just a guard. He was a wedge driven into the court's traditions. Proof that brute instinct and violent cunning were valued more than ancient ceremony or political pedigree. They couldn't remove the Emperor. But the human? The human was vulnerable. Their plan was subtle, elegant, the kind of scheme only nobles, born in the halls of power and fed on secrets, could craft. First, they would discredit him. The Vrinshaw Syndicate would fabricate classified reports, evidence that Ryker had been involved in an unauthorized strike on a neutral world during his Parthes campaign. At the same time, the Shao Collective would seed telepathic rumors of erratic behavior, paranoia, aggression, whispered threats. Then, they'd stage a diplomatic incident, a failed security breach pinned on Riker's negligence. Perhaps even hint at complicity. With enough smoke, the Emperor would be forced to act. And if not, there was always poison. But Ryker was already watching. He didn't need telepathy. He could read a room the way a wolf reads the wind. The extra glances, the quiet silences when he entered, the sudden friendliness of people who previously avoided him, the too casual approach of a steward carrying a tray with a single glass of crimson wine. He never drank it. He noticed guards being reassigned, door codes changing, inquisitors trailing him with more interest than usual. The trap was being laid, and Ryker decided to walk right into it. On the day of the incident, a staged riot broke out during a trade summit between the Narati Guild and the Emperor's envoys. Ryker, stationed alone with the Emperor in the central hall, received a falsified report through his comm. Hostiles approaching North Gate, unauthorized ships descending. He didn't move. He remained beside the Emperor, gaze steady. Moments later, 5 masked figures burst into the chamber, dressed as rebels, wielding plasma blades, screaming defiance. Before they reached the Emperor's platform, Ryker acted. The first attacker never saw the elbow that broke his jaw. The second collapsed under a nerve strike to the throat. A third was flung across the chamber into a column. The last 2 tried to flank Ryker. One died screaming as his own blade was reversed into his stomach. The other simply fled. When the guards finally arrived, the fight was already over. And Ryker stood in the center of it all, blood on his armor, chest heaving slowly. Later, when the court reviewed the attack, inconsistencies emerged. One of the attackers was a known associate of Lord Vex's personal security detail. The weapons had been traced to a noble-controlled cache. One of the falsified reports was decrypted, traced back to Lady Solith's aide. And Ryker, smiling faintly for the first time, handed the Emperor a data crystal. Names, timetables, routes. I started tracking them 10 days ago. Zelvaris examined the crystal. You knew they'd attack here. They needed a public failure. So I gave them one. The Emperor looked at Ryker, amusement flickering in his ancient eyes. And if you'd failed? I don't fail. For a moment, Zelvaris almost laughed. By decree of the throne, 3 nobles were removed from court. 2 resigned under the guise of extended reflection. 1 simply disappeared. The message was clear. The Emperor remained untouched. The human remained at his side. And now the court was truly afraid. Not just of Riker's strength, not just of his instincts, but of his intelligence. He had played their game and won. Without banners, without allies, without speaking more than a handful of words. He was no longer just a bodyguard. He was the shadow of consequence. And in a court full of liars, that was the most dangerous thing of all. The Emperor's reason. The throne room was emptier now. The grand assemblies had grown shorter. Fewer nobles attended the Emperor's morning councils, and when they did, their tones were subdued, their words chosen with care. The whisper networks still ran, but they were quieter, fragmented, like prey testing the air for a predator they couldn't see. Jack Ryker stood exactly where he always did, left of the throne, feet shoulder-width apart, arms behind his back, expression unreadable. The court no longer dared challenge his presence. Still, they didn't understand it. Why would an emperor trust a species known for its volatility? Why place the safety of the most powerful being in the galaxy in the hands of a human? Their discomfort fermented into theories. Blackmail, mind control, political leverage. But none of them asked the emperor directly. Only High Inquisitor Draith had the courage to try. He found the emperor in the meditation chamber, a sanctuary high above the spire, open to the void and lit only by starlight. Zelvares stood at the edge of the platform, robe billowing in the thin atmosphere, staring out into the infinite dark. Ryker waited several paces behind, arms folded, still as a statue. Draith cleared his throat. Your radiance, the court still questions. They do not understand your attachment to this man. The emperor didn't turn. That's because they look at the surface. The skin, the weapon, the past. But Ryker is not a sword. Then what is he? A warning, Zelvares said. And a mirror. Draith frowned. To what? To what we have become. Years ago, before Ryker, before Parthes, before peace was forged with blood and compromise, Zelvares had walked among war-torn planets. He had seen what centuries of security had done to his empire. It had softened. The species at its core had grown indulgent, reliant on diplomacy and ceremony to survive, believing strength was no longer required. They forgot how quickly the galaxy could turn. But Zelvares remembered. And then, one day, he met a human. A soldier surrounded by corpses, wounded, dehydrated, and still standing. Not because of cybernetic enhancements. Not because of battle drugs or psychic implants. Because of sheer brutal will. That soldier had been Ryker. Back in the throne room, the court gathered again, this time in full. A threat had risen on the fringes of the empire. A rogue synthetic intelligence, dormant for centuries, had reawakened, consuming border outposts and rewriting captured minds. Fear returned to the chamber. We must initiate protocol shutdowns, one noble insisted. No, diplomacy, said another. We must send envoys before they escalate. A third panicked. Perhaps we can redirect them toward the Tarshan colonies. Sacrifice a few to protect the whole. Cowards, Ryker thought. All of them. The emperor raised a hand. Silence. Then he spoke. Fear is no longer a stranger in this court. You've seen it again, felt its teeth. And now you understand why I chose Ryker. He gestured, and Ryker stepped forward. This man does not flinch in chaos. He does not debate survival. He acts. He calculates. He endures. He is not here because he is human. He is here because you are not. Gasps echoed through the hall. You have grown too fond of comfort. You've mistaken legacy for power. But the galaxy does not care about your titles. It respects only force, resolve, and clarity. Ryker is what we must remember to be, should peace fail. The silence that followed was not just fear. It was revelation. Ryker met their eyes without malice, without arrogance. Just certainty. He didn't want their throne. He didn't need their respect. He was the reminder that power, at its core, was the willingness to do what others would not. That night, Ryker stood alone in the war chamber. The Emperor joined him quietly, looking over the star charts of the encroaching AI fleet. They'll hit within the week, Ryker said. No negotiation. No mercy. You'll be ready. Ryker nodded once. Always. The Emperor studied the human's profile. They still fear you, you know. They should. Do you fear anything, Ryker? Ryker thought for a moment. Then he looked at the galaxy map, his voice calm. Only that we stop being afraid when we should be. The Emperor smiled faintly. The galaxy was changing, but he had chosen the right weapon to stand beside him.